This is barbarian blue alien smut. I'm not sure how I feel. So we shall see. So I just read the first chapter of ACOTAR and it's very interesting so far. I like that by the end of the first chapter things already kind of pick up a little bit. One thing that intimidates me about fantasy is the world building. Sometimes for me it's hard to get the world building down, but this book seems very straightforward, to the point, and I also really like the main character so far. I'm officially going to be starting ACOTAR as someone who doesn't really read fantasy that much, but I've been talking a lot about in different videos that I've been making how I want to be better at broadening my horizons whenever it comes to genres of books. And so today we are finally taking a crack at ACOTAR, probably one of the most hyped up fantasy series of all time. barbarian blue alien smut. What are you reading over here? A little Scotland. Okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Give me a rose. Good morning! Yesterday was Valentine's Day. I started reading the ACOTAR series. I started reading The Court of Thorns and Roses yesterday. I've actually gotten pretty decently far into the book. I've gotten to chapter 15, which is page 131. The book is picking up very beautifully. I actually from the start have found myself very interested in this book. I really am enjoying the writing style of the book, and I feel very connected to the main character, Feyre. So thus far in the book, we've met Feyre, we've met her family, and gotten a little bit of an idea of her everyday life. Not living the most lavish life whatsoever. They're slightly comfortable, but they don't have enough food to eat. They don't have enough resources to sustain their family without duress. Feyre was hunting in the woods one day, and she ends up killing a wolf that was about to eat her prey. So she kills this wolf and she goes home. She sells the fur of the wolf and the hide of the deer, and then a couple days pass, or like the next day passes, and suddenly there is a scary beast at their door demanding to know who killed the wolf in the woods, and she ends up finding out that particular wolf was a high fae. So they have these like fairy beings, these high fae beings that have basically all the power in the world. There's these like mythologies and these legends and these like stories that Feyre's community have told each other over the years about the high fae. They're not the best people, that they use their power for no good, that they use it to dominate the human population. So she has all these preconceived notions about the high fae, but slowly but surely, as she's been captured by Tamlin, who is the high fae wolf being that took her, she meets Tamlin and this guy named Lucian. Slowly but surely, we're just starting to get a glimpse of what the high fae is, and we're starting to learn more about all of these characters, and I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot so far. I know that eventually there will be a little bit of romance in this book, but I can tell that we haven't gotten there yet. So I am going to keep reading today, and I will update you as I continue on. But I'm really liking this book so far. About to finish chapter 16. I haven't gotten too far into the book today. Since I last updated you, I more so just talked about like the beginning of the book and sort of how the premise has started. But we're starting to get into the thick of it and starting to understand a bit of the characters' mindsets a little bit more, specifically Tamlin and Lucian. It's interesting because it seems as though there's this like connection brewing between Tamlin and Feyre. I have heard that the love interest name is Rhysand. So it's just interesting because I'm kind of starting to root for Tamlin because it seems like he does care for her well-being, Feyre's well-being. But it's just interesting to see how it unfolds, and then also how I have some slight preconceived notions or what I think are understandings of the book. But I'm realizing as I continue to read on that I actually really don't know anything about this book at all, which I really like. And I was talking about in my little Valentine's Day reading blog that I've been reading a ton of romance lately, and I don't want to burn myself out, and so I've been really wanting to pick up different books. This is sort of bringing me out of my somewhat book slump or beginning of a book slump, so it's very intriguing and enticing, and I want to keep reading. It's the next night, but I am about 50% through the book right now, and I thought I would give you guys my current updates, my current thoughts. My roses look so pretty in the background. Court of Thorns and Roses. As someone that does not read a ton of fantasy and is really just trying to get into fantasy themselves, this book is actually really good. I understand the hype. I am pretty like intrigued in the series. I'm excited to pick up this book every time I have the chance to read, and it's been a few weeks since I've had that feeling where I'm just absolutely so excited to pick up a book. I've heard a lot of people say it's kind of slow, but for me it's not too slow. I don't really mind it, and I can totally see like the Beauty and the Beast influences. The whole scene with her thinking that her dad was coming to save her was really interesting, and I like how it is also a play on the Fae and the fairy world. What I'm also liking about this book is that the chapters aren't enormously long. I love that writing. I always have like an appreciation for that type of writing, and whenever I was a writer I did write that way myself. Sometimes as a reader it's just like nice to be able to get to the point, and I feel like with this it's very concise. It's fast-paced. Even though there's not like much happening, I'm still very interested. I'm interested in the story. I'm interested in what's happening in Feyre's mind, as well as what's going on between her and Tamlin. I think that's very interesting, and I'm wondering when Rhysand or Rhys or whatever the guy's name is, I wonder when that comes into play, because I was like flipping through the next couple pages and I think I saw that name pop up, so I'm wondering if that's going to be coming into play anytime soon. So I wasn't planning on updating the camera again tonight. I was just gonna read until tomorrow. But we just met Reese. Is it Reesand? Resond? I'm gonna look up a video and see how other people say his name. Finally met who he was. I wonder where this is gonna go. Okay, until tomorrow. So it's been a couple days since I have started A Court of Thorns and Roses. I have just under 100 pages left. I guess this will be sort of my last little update before I finish the book. I meant to finish this book yesterday, but I ended up going to go hang out with some friends yesterday. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I think this part will be a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear any spoilers, feel free to skip this part. But Belle has to fall in love with the Beast before all the rose petals fall off of the rose in the Beast's little library thing. And in this book, there's a little bit of a twist on that, where Feyre ends up finding out. It was very specific too, which kind of threw me off a little bit, just how specific it was. A mortal had to fall in love with him, but that human had to have killed a Fae with hate in their heart, which is exactly what Feyre did. And then she had to tell him that she loved him before 7 times 7 years passed since this curse that has been placed on Tamlin and his court. After she finds all this out, she goes to this place called Under the Mountain, and she dares to face the woman that has cursed basically Tamlin's whole entire court. She wants to rule over all of Prynthian. So Hybern's right here, Prynthian's right here. Now that Feyre knows what's going on, she tries to face Amarantha, which is I think her name is Amarantha, and she wants Tamlin for herself. Amarantha is attracted to Tamlin. Tamlin wants nothing to do with her, but he's basically kind of like forcing his hand a little bit by saying like, if you don't get a mortal woman to fall in love with you before this time, then you will be forced to be with me. And so Feyre goes to challenge Amarantha. Amarantha tells her that she has 2 options. She can either solve a riddle and all of the curse will go away and she'll have Tamlin for herself, or she can complete 3 tasks and also, I believe, get the same outcome. So she tells her the riddle, which is a little bit weird. I don't know what the heck the riddle has to do with anything, and neither does Feyre. But I just read her first trial, her first of 3 trials, and she ends up having to fight a worm. Of all the mythical creatures, it was a worm. I'm wondering what the next 2 tasks are going to be, and I'm also wondering what the riddle has to do with anything. So that was a little spoiler section. I hope that was okay. It's very interesting to see like different videos about this book pop up. It's such a widely reviewed book. There's so many different polarized opinions that it's just very interesting to see the takes that people choose to share on this book on book 2. And I've been enjoying some of the reviews and book reviews that I have been seeing so far. So I'm excited to finish this book today so that I can watch some of those reviews and watch the ones with the spoilers in them. I am currently on chapter 37, I believe. So I have finished A Court of Thorns and Roses. I wanted to take a second to let my thoughts sort of process. I'm not sure how I feel. It's my first fantasy, like real true fantasy in a while since I read Ninth House. Because it was such a refresher, I feel like I enjoyed my reading experience a lot. There are a lot of polarizing opinions about this book, which is really interesting, and I love and have been enjoying watching all the different videos on ACOTAR and the series in general. I do plan to continue the series, and I just put in an order for the 2nd book on Amazon. I know that one is a bigger book. It's closer to 600 pages. So I think it might be, if not the longest book I've read this year, it would be one of the longest books that I would read this year. I do definitely have plans to get to it next month, and that will be exciting to finally get to. I feel like what really drew me into this book was the fast pace. I know some people say that it's rather slow paced and a lot of things don't happen, but honestly for me, I felt like things happened rather fast. I don't feel like the pacing was too slow. I feel like if anything, it might have been a medium paced book, and there were some points where it kind of felt a little flat in a way, but for the most part, I found myself genuinely engaged in this book. I was and still am a huge Disney fanatic at heart, and so I will always love the element of that fantasy retelling. That's one of my favorite elements in books, is fantasy retellings. I do have a lot of fantasy retellings on my shelves. Furthermore, I feel like the love triangle sort of situation that ended up happening in this book makes sense, and I feel like from what I've heard, I'm very interested to see how it plays out. I feel I hear a lot about Rysand and Feyre, and I haven't really heard much about Tamlin. I didn't even really know Tamlin existed until I read this book, so I'm interested to see how it all plays out. I heard that A Court of Mist and Fury gets a lot better, so we shall see. So I rated this a 4-star, and I'm going to definitely continue on with the series, and hopefully maybe we'll think about doing reading vlogs if people are interested, and if this reading vlog does well. I would definitely recommend this book for someone that isn't into fantasy. I feel like I personally am not someone that gravitates towards fantasy, but I do appreciate it, and whenever I find a good fantasy book, I am enthralled. I have had a lot of books that have fantasy elements in them, but like reading a pure dedicated fantasy was definitely a step in a direction that I wasn't sure I was going to like, and after reading this, I feel like I am a lot more open to different types of fantasy, more heavier types of fantasy. But I definitely say that this would be a good book for someone that is looking to get into the world of fantasy, that is maybe someone that gravitates towards romance, because there is a little plot of romance in here. I would say though, in my opinion, these scenes don't get that steamy, but for the most part, I feel like this has the perfect amount of spice without being too, like, it's more elusive than anything. It more like hints to it. I mean, we do get some steamy scenes where it's like the angst and the tension is high and like there's actually things that are happening, but it's nothing like descriptive in a way that's like off-putting. And I've read some books that are a little bit more off-putting, and maybe those are just smut. I don't know. People just say that this is very smut, and I haven't gotten that yet. Maybe it happens more throughout the series, who knows. Not that I'm looking for that type of thing, but it's just something that I've heard talked about. I did just want to wrap up this video, tell you guys what I thought about ACOMAF, what I thought about ACOTAR, how I thought about the series so far, and I definitely think I'm going to be continuing on with it, and we'll see how that goes. I appreciate you so much for watching this video. If you've read ACOTAR or have continued on in the series, I would love to know what your thoughts are. I would love to know maybe what you thought about the series, if you stopped after the first book or continued on. Did the other books get better? I don't know. I would love to know if anybody that is watching has read this book, because it's definitely a book that I know has been read by a lot of people, and it is super controversial. I feel like people either love it or hate it. I liked it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Again, this is your girl Paperback Girly, and I'm out.